Normally, I do my best to avoid spoilers when I do a review, but for this one, forget it. I cannot emphasize how bad this movie is with just words alone. I really have to go into detail here with how bad the writing is, so consider yourself warned. This is all spoilers, and we're jumping right in. So the previous movie had Alice getting captured by Umbrella, and then Wesker comes back from the dead, or maybe it's a clone, they don't really explain for him, but knowing this movie, it's probably a clone. Wesker comes back to put together a strike team to rescue Alice. Then, at the end of the movie, everyone gathers together at the White House, because Wesker's the President of the United States now. Everyone gathers together for one final battle against Umbrella. I just want to make sure we're on the same page here, okay? That's where we left off on the story. Resident Evil: The Final Chapter opens with a backstory on how the T-Virus was created. This really comes out of nowhere. The movie literally just opens with this stuff with no other explanation. So, apparently, this scientist, Professor James Marcus, created the T-Virus to cure his daughter's disease, which was causing her to age rapidly. Well, I guess I see where Capcom got the idea for Resident Evil 7. Anyway, during this process, when Professor Marcus was sure his daughter was going to die, he creates an artificial intelligence in her image, the Red Queen from the first and fifth movies. This is a lot of information to take in all at once, and there were never any clues in the past movies that any of this was going on. This all comes out of nowhere. Furthermore, James Marcus created the T-Virus? Oh, okay, so, we're gonna forget about this guy then? It wouldn't be the first time these movies retconned themselves, but it still manages to take me by surprise how little the series cares for its own continuity. Another thing, James Marcus, from the video game Resident Evil 0, the one with all the stupid leeches. It's not unusual for this series to inappropriately use characters and names in unfitting ways, but it's just, what's the point? He's a completely original character here. Why even reuse the name? People who don't play the video games won't know either way, and people who do play the video games and recognize the name are just gonna get pissed off that you're using a completely original character anyway. So we're 5 minutes into the movie and this is already a disaster, but I assure you, it's going to get much, much worse. The next scene shows an already bombarded and utterly destroyed Washington, D.C. I guess that epic battle didn't go over so well. I mean, it would have been cool to see Leon, Jill, Ada, maybe have Chris and Claire show up. You know, like they've been building up to for this entire franchise. Spoiler alert, none of them show up. Yeah, you've got all these Resident Evil characters, and the only ones who are here for the finale are Claire and Wesker. That's it. That is literally it. No Chris Redfield, no Jill Valentine, no Leon Kennedy, no Ada Wong. You just get Claire as the only hero. I don't get it. Both Carlos Oliveira and Claire Redfield got more story prominence in the movies than they did in the games. This is ridiculous. And I know I talk trash about Retribution using fan-favorite characters poorly, but this is even worse. This is introducing all those characters and then immediately getting rid of them without so much as a mention. Seriously, what is the point? What is this guy's end game? What is his goal? So anyway, I guess we missed that final battle. Maybe it's detailed in a tie-in comic book or something, I don't care. It's explained that Wesker lured everyone to Washington, D.C. as a trap, So I want to be clear here. Alice was captured by Umbrella and almost certainly going to get killed, so Wesker's plan was to rescue Alice from Umbrella in order to have a chance to kill her himself, which he obviously screwed up, by the way. And all of this was under orders by Umbrella. You got all that? Umbrella ordered Wesker to rescue Alice from its own underwater prison complex instead of just killing her themselves. No. No, no, no. Bad writing is one thing, but this is pure stupidity. None of the other characters are ever mentioned again. I guess it's implied they all died in the White House battle or whatever. So Alice is aimlessly wandering around, exploring the wasteland, when she comes across a small facility. Here, the Red Queen contacts her and claims that it needs Alice's help to stop the T-virus from completely wiping out all of humanity. Again, this comes completely out of nowhere. The Red Queen's main goal in the first movie was to prevent the T-virus from escaping the underground Hive facility. And if they wrote these movies so that she would only ever show up again in this last finale, then fine, whatever. It's dumb, but I can follow that logic. But no, the Red Queen was also in the previous movie, and her goal there was just to straight up kill everyone. Period. So if her goal all along was to prevent the T-virus from destroying humanity, why the hell was she giving Alice such a hard time? The big plot device here is that Umbrella created an antivirus that can be released airborne and would eventually wipe out the T-virus from the planet. So Alice has to make her way back to the Hive, retrieve the antivirus, and save the world. Along the way, she runs into Dr. Alexander Isaacs, the main villain from the third movie, who mutated and she killed, but it's explained that there's a bunch of clones running around, so whatever. Who even cares then? There's no stakes. Whenever you want a character to come back, you just have to be like, oh, that guy? No, that was my clone.
I killed you.
Yet here I am.
A clone. I killed your clone.
It's cheap and stupid. There's no weight behind it. Later on, Alice meets up with Claire and a group of survivors, and they all agree to meet up at the Hive. I'm gonna gloss over a lot of this stuff because there isn't too much to complain about here. I'll get back to this after this elongated plot summary. Eventually, Alice makes it to the final confrontation with Dr. Isaacs. I love how during this really long-winded, drawn-out battle, Claire Redfield is just sitting there in the background not doing anything. I get that she got her butt kicked pretty bad and she's probably passed out during half of it, but she conveniently wakes up right when Alice finishes fighting. If there is ever any takeaway from any of these movies, any kind of moral or theme you're trying to get from it, it's that teamwork never means anything as long as you have Mila Jovovich as the main character. Okay, back on track. It's revealed that Alice herself was actually a clone of James Marcus's daughter Alicia, the same person who the Red Queen was modeled after, and who also has that accelerated aging disease. On top of that, Alicia was in cryostasis sleep up until right now because reasons. Isaacs and Alicia really hate each other, and a lot of the movie's plot seems to stem from their rivalry, which could have been at least somewhat interesting if Dr. Isaacs wasn't so one-dimensionally evil. Seriously, this guy's got all the depth of a Saturday morning cartoon villain, but with none of the charm. The whole Alice being a clone thing is fine because that's actually been touched upon several times before. So I can see that plot thread coming into play, but again, The whole backstory with James Marcus, his daughter, the Red Queen, all these characters being connected. Look, I get that stories can evolve and change over time and through sequels. I get that. You try to develop a story as it goes on, and, to be fair, the Resident Evil movies have been going on for like over a decade at this point. But Paul W.S. Anderson, the main writer for each one of these movies, clearly did not care. He didn't care at all. The amount and severity of retcons, forgotten characters, and sudden changes in personal motivations is not only bad writing, it is insulting to the intelligence of anyone even attempting to pay attention to the plot. For one last kick to the balls, the ending is worth bringing up. Alice gets the antivirus and breaks the vial. This is like supposed to be an airborne spore or something, I would imagine that it might take time to spread and to take effect, right? Well, damn! That thing works fast!
The antivirus is airborne, spread by the winds. It could take years for it to reach every corner of the Earth.
Years? Why the hell would it take years? You killed like 1,000 zombies in 10 seconds! If you can believe it, that's not even the dumbest part of the movie. A big part of the plot is that releasing the antivirus would probably kill Alice as well, since she has T-virus cells in her body. And I'm actually okay with that. That's not the worst send-off for this character and the series of movies. So I kind of expected Alice to allow the zombies to tear her apart after she broke the antivirus vial, since this was a suicide mission and she accomplished what she set out to do anyway. It would have been a nice way to cap everything off. But then the zombies die instantly, which is stupid, and Alice also lives and is perfectly fine, so whatever. But then you get this line at the very end of the movie.
It could take years for it to reach every corner of the Earth. Until then, my work is not done.
This guy, Paul W.S. Anderson, has some beach ball-sized cojones to call this movie the final chapter and end it on sequel bait. It's just ludicrous. Seriously, it's like it comes off as a joke. I could go on and on, I really can, but I think I've made my point clear. Oh god, one more thing I actually forgot. Remember how at the end of the previous movie, Retribution, President Wesker stabbed Alice with the needle to inject her superpowers back into her? Obviously, that was going to be a setup for this movie where it was going to be all these epic fights or whatever. I kid you not, that is explained and hand-waved away as Wesker pretending to give Alice her powers back.
Wesker, he led you all here to Washington. He pretended to give you your powers back. And then he betrayed you.
I have no real comment on that. If the movie wasn't taking itself so seriously, I swear this would be a comedy. So again, I could go on and on, but the main takeaway is that this is the worst written movie out of the entire series by far. The previous movies were bad, but this is insane. But you can have a movie with a downright abysmal story and have it still be enjoyable if the other elements can help lift it up. When Alice is captured by Dr. Isaacs earlier in the movie, there's this really weird cinematography they use inside of the armored truck. Everything is very up close and feels claustrophobic. There's this cool thing they do with the lighting when Dr. Isaacs is walking through the truck, and everything here in general feels extremely dark and grimy. very, very evil looking location. That can be really cool. There's not a whole lot here that I hate. Aside from his character being so strongly centered around a religious angle, which comes out of nowhere and is very stupid. But anyway, the Doctor is presented as being extremely evil, like a seriously intimidating force to be reckoned with. And then he's dealt with, like, immediately afterwards. And from then on, he's, like, trying to catch up to Alice, trying to capture her again, but he's doing really poorly at it, and he keeps killing his own soldiers whenever they backtalk him, which hilariously turns out to be a lot. They turned Dr. Isaacs into a complete jobber, and like, I don't know, is this supposed to be comedic? It's so strange. What is the point of having this whole setup if they're not gonna do anything with it? Oh, no, wait, my bad. I know what the point is. It's to make Mila Jovovich look even more like a badass. Of course. Deep characterizations and equally conflicting oppositions? Who cares? Paul W.S. Anderson obviously doesn't care. When Alice gets to the encampment with the other survivors and meets up with Claire, they have to prepare for Dr. Isaacs arriving with an army of zombies. I like how the movie actually makes an attempt at utilizing the other characters that are hanging around. Alice is overseeing the operation and directing everyone on what they need to do. Not half bad. Then they pour down a ton of gasoline and light it on fire in midair, creating an absurdly over-the-top fire waterfall. I doubt that's how it works or that it would be that effective. But you know what, man? I'll take it. This is a fun little action scene, and honestly, this is the only part of the movie that isn't awful. Once the gang makes it to the Hive, the movie turns into a full-on booby-trapped haunted house. This could have been fun if it were the whole movie. Also, ideally, if it wasn't a Resident Evil movie at all, so it wouldn't have to carry all this baggage. But, you know, here we are. It's the same issue a lot of these movies had, where the characters are killed off one by one and it's supposed to be a big deal. But it doesn't matter because none of them were developed in the first place. It's a series of generic characters getting offed, so who cares? The situations they find themselves in are mildly creative and entertaining, but each scenario is so unimpactful since the characters don't matter. These three individual elements I detailed could have been fine in their own movie if they were focused on, but they make such a short amount of time in this movie that they don't amount to anything. It's pointless, it's frustrating, and it's idiotic. But for the cherry on the sundae, the aspect that drops this movie from bad to worthless are the action scenes. It's the same exact complaint I've had with some of the previous movies where the action is simply too close up and the camera cuts are way too rapid. But if you can believe it, it's actually magnified tenfold in this one. Seriously, I can barely tell at all what's going on in any of these scenes. There's no proper choreography, there's no good editing involved, there is nothing. Would it kill them to pull back the camera just a little bit to show what is happening? You know what? Yeah, it probably would kill them. That would involve actual stunt coordination. That would take effort. What you're seeing here is the equivalent of a 5-star restaurant. They have all the expertise, all the staff, all the equipment at their disposal. And the house special today? Kid cuisine. Paul W.S. Anderson doesn't even have the decency to give me dinosaur-shaped chicken nuggets. The fact that this franchise went on for so long and people kept going to see them is proof to me that the world cares not for even the slightest semblance of quality. It is not difficult to find better action movies out there across a variety of genres. This is the lowest common denominator of film on top of having no positive qualities whatsoever. Paul W.S. Anderson is a hack, a cheat, and a fraud to have made 6 of these movies, and none of them are any good. He doesn't even have a consistent writing or directing style. He directed the first, 4th, 5th, and 6th movies, and he wrote all of them, but none of them feel like they were handled by the same guy. They all have a totally different approach to them. 2 of the movies have a bunch of slow motion and 3D effects, but then the last one doesn't have any at all. Which, don't get me wrong, I'm glad about, but if nothing else, it's proof that Paul W.S. Anderson was just trying to get away with experimenting on a goofy and expensive gimmick. They at least made an attempt at the action choreography in the 3rd movie, but every movie surrounding it is way worse. Although, to be fair, he wasn't the director for that one, but the point is that all of these movies are such a jumbled mess, there's no consistency at all. Well, I take that back. The only consistency there is that they're all terrible. I don't know what else to say. I'm not even glad that it's over because I'm so upset over how it all turned out. And the worst part is, Anderson is still making movies. I don't know, maybe I'm the crazy one. I mean, I must be, I watched all these movies. It's just, you can have campy, stupid stories, bad acting, poor special effects. You can have all that, okay? But the movie needs to have something to ground it in quality. Like, I'm not super pretentious and picky here, at least I try not to be. I enjoyed the Spawn movie because there's elements there that are actually good. Invasion USA is a really fun and stupid movie, and I like that one too. And then you have Resident Evil Vendetta, the last CGI movie. That one's basically an anime with how ridiculously stupid and over the top it is, but you know what? I can actually see what's going on and the characters are fun. It's an enjoyable movie. All these live-action Resident Evil movies are nothing but garbage. All I can say is, watch the first one for curiosity's sake if you want to, but I don't recommend it. Then, watch the rest of them as a study on some of the worst movies ever made, because that's all they're good for. Thanks for watching my review on Resident Evil: The Final Chapter.